Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today on the Divine Messages podcast. My name is Karina, and I am a psychic medium out of Calgary, Alberta. I have another one of my lovely students coming on here with me today to share her spiritual journey with all of you. So, everyone, please help me welcome Karina to the podcast. Hi, Karina. It's so weird saying that, but hi, how are you?
I know. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. You're one of the only Karinas that I know that has the name spelled exactly like mine. Kind of
I
rare.
know. I love it though. I think that's what drew me to you is when I heard about you and I saw your name. I was like, it's meant to be.
That's
She's
right.
got to be. She's got to be my girl.
And that's how this happened. So let's take everybody back in time and share how we actually met and how everything kind of transpired.
Perfect. All right. So I had first heard from you from a friend of mine who had gone to a group reading with you, and then she had sent me a link to one of your podcasts. I think it was with Sean in the White Feather.
Oh, Sean Leonard. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I listened to that and just right away I was like, oh, like your soul just spoke to me. And I was like, I need to book a reading with her.
Aw.
And you're not the first psychic I'd ever booked a reading with, so it wasn't something like I was scared to do or unsure of. I just knew right away. I felt like I needed to talk to you.
Oh.
So we booked that first meeting online. I booked
Hmm.
it online, and then we had some, I don't know what you would call them, hiccups
Yes.
getting together.
Yeah. There was some cancellations. I think I canceled on you because I was maybe sick or something. And then I
Yeah, and
think
then
you
I
might
had
have
to cancel
canceled.
one.
Yes.
And then finally the third one, my son was I'm not sure why my son was home that day. If he was not feeling well, or, he had been having a lot of struggles going to school, but he was going to be home that day. And
Hmm.
I remember the night before, I was like, I'm going to see Karina tomorrow. And he is right into all of this stuff too. Like we talk angels, he has stones and crystals everywhere. Like he's right into this.
Right.
And so he had asked if he could come. And I was like, well, let me check. And you had said, sure, no problem. So he was super excited. And then that next morning, we got in the car and we started to drive down our driveway. And we have a long driveway, like we live on an acreage. And
Hmm.
about halfway, he's like, where are we going? And I was like, we're going to see Karina, remember? And he just burst into tears. He's like, I don't want to go. I can't go. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you were excited. He's like, Mom, I can't go. I don't want to go. So then I had messaged you and said, can we do it over Zoom? And you were like, yeah, of course. So we turned the car around and
Right.
came home. And then we just ended up doing that first meeting over Zoom.
And I do remember like he didn't even want to come near the camera for the longest time. And I'm doing your reading and we kind of do, a virtual, well, I didn't walk through your house like virtually with the camera. I walked through it psychically, I suppose. And I was looking around and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's all this heavy energy. Like we need to get this clear. And then I think I might have mentioned to you that I felt he had some sort of attachment or something was really going on. And then I think at the very, very end, he came on the camera, correct?
Yes. Yes. And you eased me into that. You were like, I don't know how I should tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this. I was like, oh
Right.
no, coming. And you were like, there's something attached to him. And then you started to talk about, two things like, well, I remember you were actually right before you had said that, you're like, I have something to share. And then I don't know if you remember this, but my dogs went crazy.
Oh,
And they
no, I
also,
don't.
yeah, my dogs started barking. So I was like, oh, I have to get them out of the room. And you were like, they know what's coming. And
Oh.
then you had told me your son has an attachment to him, a negative attachment, an icky, something that makes him feel icky.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I just remember feeling like, I'm very careful and cautious when it comes to people's children. And, like I'm a mom and I know that we are so, protective of our babies. And the only way that I know this is because I've experienced this stuff in my own life. I have two boys and I've been through everything you could possibly imagine with them. And I just remember seeing this little guy in my mind's eye before he came onto the camera, and I was like, uh-oh, there's something going on. Like he is just really scared. He's not feeling good. He's stressed out. And then when he actually popped onto the camera and I looked at him, he wouldn't make eye contact with me. And I was like, something is definitely there. And we need to clear this.
Exactly. And I think um it was it was I don't want to say it was easy for me, but it was, I had just gone through a separation we're in a new house. Easton's living now without his dad and only seeing his dad part-time. And I think all of these behaviors that were coming up, we just attributed to, oh, this poor little guy, he's going through so much. There's so much change. And
Hmm.
I saw him changing in front of my eyes, thinking it all had to do with all of the life circumstances that we were going through. And I'm sure some of it was, but I
Right.
remember you saying, no, there's more. And I don't know if we wouldn't have talked if I would have ever stopped to think maybe it's something more than
Hmm.
just stress and anxiety of a new home, a new situation.
Right. Right. Because I think most people would assume that, okay, there's big changes, there has been a separation. Maybe he's upset about it and going through the emotions, but and I did see part of that, but that wasn't what was really bothering me. It was the attachment that I kept feeling was like lingering around him. And I'm like, he's not, he's having stomach pain. He's scared to go to the bathroom alone. Like, remember you were telling me
Yes,
that he couldn't even sleep in his room. He couldn't go to take a shower by himself. He was terrified.
he was. Well, and what started the being terrified of his bathroom, because he absolutely, when we moved into this place, loved his bathroom. Like it's a big walk-in shower. He loved it. And then he was in there one day and he came out like white as a ghost. And I was like, buddy,
Ah.
what's going on? And he's like, Mama, someone tickled the back of my neck. And again,
Oh,
I was just like, maybe it was just a fly, maybe it was the water on your back. Like I just made excuses,
right.
thinking, God, I hope that's not what it didn't even cross my mind that there was a spirit or something touching him. I was really trying to come up with something that would make sense in our life and would make sense to make him feel better.
Right.
But now, through our conversations with you, 100% he knows and feels, and he felt someone behind him. So from that moment, I had to sit in the bathroom while he showered. He just
Oh,
refused to go in there by himself.
poor guy.
I
It
know.
just reminds me of myself, right, as a child and the fear that I had because that's the stuff that they did to me. Like I'd be laying in bed and they'd come along and like grab my feet and my toes and I'd be like, please don't touch me. Like I was so scared. And I would
Mhm.
go to my parents and I'd say, this happened. There was someone at the end of my bed and they were staring at me or they were like pulling at my toes and they would tell me that I was crazy, that I was in my head. And they're like, oh, that's not real. And I just was so confused, I suppose. And that's probably one of the reasons why I love working with kids so much to this day, because I feel like a lot of children aren't heard. I know I wasn't being heard and I was being terrorized, sadly. And it's not that I'm blaming them. They just probably didn't want to scare me. But at the same time, I think it's important to be real with our kids in a, an appropriate way and an age appropriate way so that they do understand that they're not imagining it, that what is happening is actually real and that we're there to help them.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's been one of the biggest shifts in our relationship is me just acknowledging him and believing him when he tells me things now. There's even times
Yes.
we'll be driving and he'll be like, Mama, how fast are you going? I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm going the speed limit. I'm like, do you feel uncomfortable right now? And he's like, yes. I'm like, do you want me to change lanes? Do you want me to slow down? He's like, can you go to the slow lane and slow down? And I'm like, 100% buddy. I'm like, I believe you are intuitive. And if you get a ping or a
Wow.
feeling, I'm going to listen to you. Like, if you want me to slow down, here we go. And so I think even
Oh
just acknowledging that for him is giving him some of his power back.
my God. I have goosebumps up and down my body just listening to you say that because that you're just so incredible. You're an incredible mom, Karina. Like I just wish that every parent out there could listen to their kids that way because children are that intuitive. They know. And if he's uncomfortable or he's getting a download to give you a heads up or a warning, my gosh, yes, listen, for sure. That's amazing.
Exactly. Well, and there's been times where he's knowing things he shouldn't know. And I'm like, how do you know that? Like, and I was, did you hear something? And he's like,
Yeah.
no. Like, how do you know that? And his go-to right now is like, oh, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking, Mom. But somewhere, somehow in him, he knows things. So we talk about that too. I'm like, buddy, you know that you know things you shouldn't know. Like,
Hmm.
and you have to, it's okay. like we don't know maybe where they're coming from or how you're seeing them, but it's okay that you know these things. And I really tell him too, I'm so happy that you feel safe enough to come and tell me
That's
because some of them
amazing.
are pretty big, heavy things that he's sharing with me.
Right.
Um, but I want him to be able to know he can come to me because I don't want him to be a teenager and then feel he can't when things even get bigger and crazier.
That's right. Because he's 8 now. Is that correct?
Yeah, just turned 8 this summer.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, and that's a really tough age as well, because that's when I actually really remember at least seeing spirit, like 8, 9 years old. And
Mhm.
it was so scary. It really was. I just had no one to really turn to or no one to help me through that. And I think he's so blessed to have you as a mom to listen to him and to acknowledge it. And I think even when he was going through all of this, attachment or the spirit that was kind of lingering and following him, you would even try to do like clearings and stuff and prayer, and he just wouldn't have it. Do you remember like where you're like, oh my God, like he won't
Yeah.
even let
Well, I
me do the
remember,
prayer?
yeah, I remember, yeah. So you gave us the Archangel Michael prayers to say at night.
Hmm.
And I would start to say them out loud, and he'd be like, no, do it in your head, mom. Like he didn't want to even hear the words. And I was like,
Yes.
okay, well, I feel like I'm still protecting and shielding us, even if I'm not saying them out loud. And then you gave us the ingredients for the Ghostbuster cleanse smudge.
Yeah.
And I remember I went and got them all. I was like, okay, buddy, let's do this. And he was like, can you do it when I'm at daddy's house? I was like, okay,
Wow.
absolutely. So the first time, I've done it many times, but that first time I did it when he was gone, and then I think I told you this. He came back the next day and it was still on the counter in the bowl, and he went to smell it and instant stomach ache. He's like, I think I'm going to throw up. And
Oh, no, you didn't tell me that. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, the poor
and
guy.
and I was like, is that like the
That's a sign.
attachment
Hmm.
still being like, step away, stay away?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell people, like, some people will message me and go, Karina, I can't get this sage to light. I'm like, that's because something doesn't want you to light it. Light that shit up, stand there and pray and make sure that you get this thing gone. Like really, I
Yeah.
think sometimes when there are earthbound spirits or low vibrational spirits, they do try to block that uh, healing. And for
Hmm.
him, of course, like when I couldn't look him in the eye, and that's how I knew. He wouldn't look at me in the eye at all. He was kind of like looking down. And I know a lot of kids can be intimidated by other adults. But that's not the message I was getting. I was getting there was something that just didn't want the help and it just didn't want to leave him. And
Yeah.
I was like saying to you, I'm like, no, you have to continue. Like, make sure you do this, make sure you do this. And I think you smudged a few times and it kind of got a little bit better, but there was still something that was really bothering him. I think that's what you had told me, right? Because you
Yeah.
messaged.
So we did smudge a few more times, and I had the same issues you were just talking about. Like it would go out and I would restart it. It would go out and I would restart it. And then, the I don't want to swear, the creepy basement I have, you
Yes.
felt.
Oh, I
I would,
felt it. I was down there in
yeah,
my head, psychically seeing it, going, oh my God, what is this place?
right. So I was down there and the tree sap all of a sudden just started to billow black smoke. And the
Hmm.
fire alarm is going off, and I'm like, I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going. So it was like choking on smoke, beep, 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 and I kept going.
Yeah.
Um, and I finished that one, but then again, a few days later, he's asking me, can you smudge again? Does Karina have the Ghostbuster spray? Because I told him you had that spray. He's like, does she have the spray yet? And I was like, I don't think so, buddy. But so he was
Oh,
continuously asking me to smudge, but only when he wasn't here.
okay. Interesting, right?
Yeah, it was so interesting. So it was like he knew there was something he wanted to get rid of, but there was something, this attachment that
Want
wouldn't let
him
him
done.
be
Mhm.
here.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that is so crazy. And then later on, I think it was a few months later, I had done another mini group reading at your girlfriend's house and I showed up. And I think I had said to you in that reading too, I was like, there's still something going on with him.
Yes. Yeah, because he had come in and you had seen him.
Oh, yeah, that's
He,
right. At the end
he
of
had
it, he
come in at
showed
the
up.
very end.
Hmm.
Yeah. I remember you like staring him down, and in my head, as I was like, I can't wait to talk to her. What is she seeing? What is she seeing?
I'm sorry. I
No,
was
I loved
looking
it.
because I was standing at the front door and you were sitting on the couch with him when I was trying to leave. And I'm like, I couldn't take my eyes off him because I was looking and I'm like, that is not your son. I see something else. I don't even see your little boy. And I remember saying, like, I think we got to get this clear because something else is going on. Like, you can smudge all you want. And I think it's great that the house is a lot, more clear. But with him, just kept seeing this thing on him. And I don't even know if I can explain it to everybody else that, maybe listening. I don't know. It sounds really weird, but psychically, I was looking at him and I saw I didn't, at the time he was 7, I didn't see a 7-year-old boy. I was looking at something different and bigger and darker. And I'm like, that is not your son.
Mhm.
And he was really uncomfortable. Do you remember? Because he was like shifty and he was moving and he was trying to look at me, but then not look at me. And he was afraid. And I'm like, I just, I knew that that wasn't him because he does love this stuff, but whatever was around him wouldn't, it really, I guess I irritated that energy.
Well, which was good.
Sadly. Yeah,
No,
it's
not
good because
sadly. That's I think what I needed because I think still at that point, even though we're smudging and stuff, I was still making excuses for him. Like, oh, he's still going back and forth between houses and we're trying to clear him. And I really excused his behaviors. Like you said, he was not the kid I knew. He, there was a point where he was saying he would get so mad about the littlest things.
yeah,
And he would like throw things, he would break guitars. Then it would started to be, I want to hurt you, I want to kill myself. And this isn't like that was not my little boy
that's
at all. And
right.
I would
Mhm,
break down and then I and he thankfully we found a wonderful therapist at the time too that was helping us through this.
mhm.
Um, but I was like, I don't know what's bringing this on. And she didn't know what was bringing this on, other than again making excuses for all the changes. But I knew this isn't my little boy. Where's his light? Like his light was gone.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Even his eyes looked like a bit sunken in and like dark or like circles around them. And I'm like looking
Tired.
at him going, yes. And I'm like, that is not the little boy that because spirit always shows me two people, right? It's like what he once was to what he is now, so that I can understand what is attached or what's around him. And he didn't look at all what spirit had showed me prior to this house, because I think that's where the attachment kind of, I hate to say that, but came from, and that's where I was like, oh my gosh, this poor little guy who had bright eyes and this bright spirit just got really dull and heavy, and all these dark thoughts were coming in. The anger, like you said, those really terrible things to say. No 7-year-old says that. Even going through a lot of things in life, yes, I understand the big change and everything, but this was darker than that. And I knew that there was something more. And then after that group, I had said that to you. I'm like, he needs to be cleared. And I believe we tried to set up a Reiki appointment for him to come to me, and then I was going to help you with that, right?
We had talked about should I, because I knew he was going to be resistant and you knew. So we were still sort of in that conversation period of should we come to you? Should you come out here?
Oh, yes, right.
We were
Yes.
trying to figure that out. And then I remember that nightmare I had. Well,
No.
so I sent you a message and I was like, I think I'm sleepwalking. Like I woke up in the morning and there was stuff on the counter that shouldn't have been there. I was like, am
Oh,
I
yes. Yeah.
sleepwalking? Like what? So then that started to freak me out because I was already having nightmares, which I don't normally have nightmares, but I was having like waking up really anxious, not remembering what I had dreamed about, but knowing it scared me.
Okay. Yeah.
And I started to sleepwalk. I was like, what is going on? And then one night, Easton was at his dad's, and it's sort of that in between awake and asleep stage. And I saw Easton's face in my mind, and it was sort of like those Terminator movies where his face kind of glitched out, and all I saw was like this green demon behind his face.
Oh,
And I remember bursting into tears. I Archangel Michael'd all night long, like protect, shield my little man. And then the next day I had said, you need to come out. I don't care the cost. I don't care. You need to come.
oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, actually forgot about that till you just said it. And then I was like, oh, sucker punched. I'm like, I remember. It was so dark. Yes. And I remember
Oh
how
no.
scared you were. And
Hmm.
I think at that point we were trying to like get an appointment going. And I said to you, I was like, I am so sorry. I would love to come right now, but my schedule is so crazy. And especially in emergency situations, I will make the time, but I literally didn't have it. And I thought, what am I going to do? Like, I can't leave the poor girl like this. And instantly, my friend Joanne, who's also a healer, had popped into my head. And I went, okay, look, she popped into my head. I feel like, I've trusted her with my children when my kids were younger to come and help clear not only them, but myself as well. And I thought, this is your person. This is who needs to come out. And I messaged her with your permission, of course. And I said, I have a child who is going through something and he needs the help like now. Can you get there? And magically, someone from up above decided that she was about to go on a vacation too and take time off. And you caught her, I think, the very next day, did you not? That she came to you?
I did. Yeah. So she was going to originally come the next day. She said she could come the next day. And then when I contacted her, she was like, I can actually come tonight. I'll come tonight. I was like, are
Oh,
you serious? Like, and she's 2 hours away from me. And she was willing to just drive and come help us,
she's
which
incredible. Yeah.
I don't get like that. That was amazing to me.
Hmm. She's done that for me as well. I'm going to just throw this out there that probably about 9 years ago, I also had an attachment and I could not stop shaking, crying. I was depressed. I was like, something's wrong with me. But when you're in it, you can't see. And so I, went to this campground with my family and my father-in-law at the time. And I just remember as soon as we parked and set up camp, I was just like shaking. I was shaking uncontrollably, to be honest. Like I was just a mess. And Nick's looking at me like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what this is. And I was getting flashes of her face in my mind. And so I reached out to her and I said, Joanne, I can't explain this, but I keep seeing your picture, your face in my mind. And I'm reaching out because I just feel awful. I can't shake this feeling. And she also drove 2 hours to the campsite that I was at to come and clear me. And I mean, I can do this for other people, but when you're in it yourself, we can't do it ourselves. And thank
Mhm.
God Spirit showed me her face and she came out and rescued me. So I would say that when I was getting her picture again in my mind for your son and her magically having that time that night to come and do a clearing is a gift from God. I tell you, that's just a miracle in my eyes. So it's crazy. And then she came out and I don't even
Yes.
know what she did really, but
Well, so she came out, and she was wonderful and lovely right off the bat. She wanted to meet Easton right away, so he refused to leave his room, of course. So we
yep.
went up to his room. She met him. He was playing video games. He would not stop playing. He would not look at, like, he didn't even acknowledge she was in the room. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, so we've talked about her. She's here to help clear us. She's going to clear the house. And I could tell he was listening to me. And I I told him she was coming. He was 1000% okay with her coming. Like, I just, I want to make sure you're okay with it. And he was like, yes. Like, he knew this needed to happen. But again, in that moment,
Hmm.
all the walls started to go up.
Yeah.
So she walked around the house with those little tuning forks, which I think are just so amazing.
Yes.
And so she found that there were actually two spirits in our house,
Yep.
which is wild because in the spare bedroom that's beside the bathroom that terrifies Easton, I
Hmm.
always felt perfume. And I felt like there was like this grandma presence. And every once in a while I would smell this perfume. And she felt the same thing, that there was a female presence over there. She feels like that's the presence that probably was with Easton, but not in a scary way. She was just there with him. But of course, her touching him or being that close to him freaked him out.
Right.
Um, and then she did sense the one downstairs in the creepy basement.
Yep.
She didn't feel he was evil or anything. She just was like, this is his place and he really just doesn't want you here. But it's not, he was just sort of like, I think, a grumpy, cranky, I'm here, this is my space, kind of leave me alone type thing.
Right. Yeah, they
So
can be
then,
like that.
yeah. So then she went to clear me and she pulls out this magnificent eagle wing. Like it was
Oh,
the most,
her eagle wing, it's my favorite. It's huge. Yes.
it's so huge. And she gets me to turn towards the north. I believe I had to turn west. I think I might have turned west. Whatever. I turned towards this giant window I have. And
Yep.
just as she's about to start, and legit eagle flies past the window.
Wow.
Did you see that? And she's like, no, I didn't. It turned around, Karina, and flew back again so she could see it.
No,
Yes. I was like,
it's
like
magical.
it was wild. So she cleared me
Yeah.
and then she started to clear the house. And she's like, I'll just clear Easton in his room. Like it'll be a little bit harder for me to do while he's playing his video games, but she's like, I think that's the only way we can do it. So she started in by the front door and she started to work her way around. And when we got to his room, I sat in front of him because I had to turn his chair a little bit. And he instantly like started to shake and
Hmm.
his eyes got all teary. And so she started to clear him and she had the eagle feather and this and the smudging. And then she put her hands on him for the Reiki. And the whole time he was just shaking. And then she was
Oh.
like, okay, Easton, we're done. And she left the room and we just continued on our way. I'm
Hmm.
like, that's it, buddy. You're done. You're clear. And I'm like, I'm just gonna go with her for around the rest of the house. And then she did the rest of the house. The grandma, the female spirit, was a little bit trickier to get rid of. She had to try twice.
Hmm.
And then she gave me the little prayer she says to like gather everybody around the spirit and help bring him up towards heaven. And so that if anything ever comes back again, I can try that
Yes.
if they come back. And then we thanked the earth. We went around and put tobacco around our property. And then she was gone. Like it was in and out and probably close to 2 hours. I would say she was here.
Yep. Amazing. And
So amazing.
then how did he feel the next day?
I think it was probably 2 or 3 days later, I sent you a message and I was like, my little boy is back. Like it was
Yeah.
that fast. Like all of a sudden, I was getting hugs. Like I hadn't gotten hugs in months. He was giving me hugs. He was laughing.
Oh,
It was like his light came
went
back.
back
Like
on. Yeah.
it was amazing how fast it came back, how fast he came back.
What a miracle. Oh my gosh, what a miracle. Like, I know that it sounds a little far-fetched and a little woo-woo and bizarre and everything, but we're doing this episode because I really want to share with the world that we really have to take our children seriously when they say they see things or they're not feeling good or they're having all of these dark thoughts and stuff. And it really is true that there's spirits that are earthbound that kind of linger or sometimes unfortunately attached to light beings. I always say, and this might sound kind of weird, but that we are a soul in a physical body, and sometimes we can be a host. They're looking for a host, really. And so
Exactly.
sometimes
Well,
children are so open.
yeah. Well, and I think he was probably at such a low point and low vibration that it was easy for
Yes,
whatever it was to
the
attach to.
target. And that's where I have conversations with all of my clients and students about your vibrational level. So when you are in a lower vibe, and that can be brought on by trauma, stress, alcohol, drugs, many factors, we do become susceptible to lower vibrational energies around us. We attract it. It's like we're like magnets, really, to be honest. So I always work, even on myself and my family, to always keep our vibrational levels high because I know what can happen. And I don't think a lot of people are actually aware of it. And I don't want to do this episode to scare anybody, but I want to be informative and preventative for so many people. If I can help in that way, then, well, that's what I'm going to do when it comes to kids and families because I care that much. It's sad because I've been through it.
Well, and it's like you said, there's so many people that I've told this story to that do think I'm just crazy. That they look at me and
Yeah.
I can tell that they're like,
Oh, that's
she's
great.
kind. Yeah, like, oh,
Yeah. Okay, weirdo.
yeah. And I just,
Welcome to my world. Yeah.
and I often think like, well, it's not about you. It's about my son. And I'm doing what's best for him.
And it
And
worked. So
and it
that's enough.
worked.
Yeah, need you say anymore, and until because it does happen to a lot of people. And when it happens to people at that point, people will do anything to try, or they will try anything to get their child help. And sometimes it may be something that seems so far-fetched, but is it really that far-fetched? It's
Yeah.
not. I think it's maybe their fear or their misunderstanding of it. They're just not aware, and that's okay too. But we know that something is really wrong. And when you have the clearing done and you get your child back, and you said the light goes back on in him, and he's happy and he's not fearful and he can sleep, that is, it's a miracle. It's nothing short of a miracle. It's the way it
Like,
is.
exactly. And now I'm trying to teach him. Like, so now he wants to hear the prayers every night. Like, if I can't say them in my head anymore, I have to say them out loud. Even if
That's
he's at his dad,
huge. Hmm.
it is, I have to say it on the phone for like my place and his dad's place. But I'm
Wow.
here to teach him, you can say these yourself, buddy. Like, you
Yes.
can say them at night. If you're out and you're feeling something, you can ask Archangel Michael anytime to
Step
help
in and help
help
me.
protect you.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm trying to teach him, you have this power. It's not me and my light. You can do the same thing.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. That is just amazing. And you ended up coming and taking your Reiki level 1 and 2 with me a few months later, was it?
I did. So, well, I remember at our the group meeting, I remember you were talking to Kate and then you looked at me and you're like, you should come do Reiki too. And I was like, me? Wow.
Mhm.
Like, it never even had crossed my mind, Reiki. And then you were like, it would help Easton. I was like, done. Sign
Yeah,
me up.
sign me up.
As soon as you said that, I was like, I'm in. Done.
Well, the funny
So,
thing is, I think you got your sign that you were supposed to do it, because I went to Stampede and I'm sitting there with my family and I think one of my son's friends, and we're watching the rodeo. And I wasn't even checking my phone because I was, with my family, and it was a very loud event. But
mhm.
something made me look at my phone, and I open up this message and it's from you. And you're like, I'm actually staring at you from the bench, like turn around and look. And I'm like, what? And I look behind me and you're like a couple of people away. And I'm like, what are the chances that we're sitting at the exact same section, so close together at a rodeo? If that isn't a sign, I don't know what is.
Right. Well, and that that day I was with my best friend from high school who I hadn't really seen in a couple of months. So, and I had been telling her all about you, all about the sessions on the way to Stampede. So she already knew who you were, your name. So when I was like, stop, that is her right there. She was like, no. It was
That's
just,
crazy.
you're like, I don't want to say wild coincidence because it isn't a coincidence, but it was wild.
Yeah, that is wild. Because when you told me after, you're like, we were talking about you the whole car ride over. I was like, okay, if you needed a sign that you're on the right path and you're doing the right thing by coming to do your Reiki, this is it. Pretty sure this is it. So, and then you did. You came and you trusted it. And, I watched you open up during the class and recognize your abilities. And I just, I love being in your energy. You're just so sweet and so kind. And you just have so much love to give. And that's kind of why I was so proud of you and happy for you that you had done the class, because I knew that it was going to open up many doors for you. And it will. It is, and it will.
You keep telling me that. I know.
I, I, I kind of know some stuff sometimes. So I do,
Like,
I do
uh,
trust my guides, and I did. I've seen it a couple of times for you. And I thought, she has no idea yet. And I'm just grateful to be a part of it. I really am. And I'm grateful that you trusted me, not only with coming, to do your Reiki, but really to help you with your child. Because as a mama bear myself, I know how fragile we are when it comes to, doing anything for our children that involves someone else. And we're so guarded and it's hard to trust. And yet someone up on the other side decided that I was going to be the one to help you. And then after that would be Joanne. And you got your baby back. And that
yeah,
is more than anything in this world.
100%. Well, and I think now I've put so much trust in you and so much trust in Joanne, and now I feel like I'm learning to put trust in myself. which I
That's huge.
still hard. Like when you send out that message about who's ready for the next class, I had asked Easton, I'm like, this is what's happening. Dude, and he
Mhm.
looks at me, and goes, "You're not ready." I go,
You
"You
said
don't,
that.
yeah." I go, "You don't think I'm ready?" He's like, "You're not ready, mom." And then the next day, a situation came up where there was like red flag, pay attention to my intuition. And I ignored them all. And I made a mistake that wasn't great. And then afterwards, I was talking to him about it. And I said, dude, you're right. I'm not ready. I was tested today and I failed miserably. I'm like, but that I believe is the lesson from the universe to tell me, start paying attention to these signs.
Start
So
paying
that,
attention, start believing.
yeah,
Yes. Gosh, he's intuitive and he's spot on. And I do feel like you're going to take those next steps and go a little bit further. We did do the first beginner class in like the class that we're talking about here is the mediumship class. And we did that last week with the students and they were incredible. We're doing another one in, I think, a week and a half. So in case you did want to join into that one, no
okay,
pressure. You will come when you're ready. But
yeah.
I watched these girls from your class open up and they were shocked at what they could do themselves. It was kind of neat I love being a teacher because I love to sit back and go, I know I see this stuff for all of you, but when you guys start seeing it, it's like, ah, there it is. It's amazing. I love it.
It was amazing. Even that Reiki class, you, I believe you believed in me 100% more than I believed in myself and the abilities. Like I was just there to, I'm going to learn Reiki. It's going to be there to help Easton. And I remember you saying, you are all here because you're intuitive. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Uh-huh. In my head, I was like, but some of the stuff I was feeling from those other women that was validated, it was just like,
Yes, you have
I don't
no
even,
idea what you can do yet. You just wait.
I'm still trying to trust that because I'm like, how in the world
Did I
did I
see it?
feel that and know that, And
Yep.
yeah,
And that
it's,
comes with practice. The more that you practice Reiki and your psychic abilities and things, we all have psychic abilities within us. Now, some of us are just meant to go further with it than
mhm.
others. So it's like, we all have this strong intuition. And again, some of us are just meant to dive into that and use it and hone in on it. And I know you definitely have it. You went through this experience with your son. It was, one of those lessons. It's not to punish you or anything. It's just to help you evolve. And that's what lessons are. And as you go forward and start practicing some more and trusting, I really think you're going to be like, it's always been in there. I did it myself. I knew I always like had a really deep sense of intuition and gut feelings and things like that, but I didn't know what I was capable of. And then all of a sudden, the door opened and I walked through it and I was like, wow, I had no idea I could do this. And even to this day, I do it every single day, like about 5 days a week. And so to me, I still sit back and go, I can't believe I can do this. This is crazy. How is this possible? I'm still blown away by spirit. It's
It's pretty
amazing.
amazing. It's pretty amazing.
Hmm.
I remember one of the first times I did Reiki on Easton for the practice. And
Yeah.
um and I think this is why you led me to Reiki too, was again to help Easton with another level, another way. I was doing Reiki on him and all I saw in my head was a merry-go-round, spinning, spinning, spinning.
Yeah.
So I asked him, I'm like, buddy, do you feel like sometimes you're just like going, going, going and doesn't stop? And
Hmm.
he's like, yes. And I'm like, well, what is that? And we had added an extra day into our schedule for him to go to his dad's because it was summer. So it was like he was at my place, then he would go to his dad's, and then my place. Like there was just a lot more back and forth. And he's like, Mom, it's just too much. Can we cancel the extra day at dad's? I was like,
Wow.
100%. Like, we'll talk to dad. Yeah, we want what's best for you. And my guy is super shy, isn't a
Aw,
great communicator. He keeps a lot in. So for me to be able to pull that out from the Reiki, I thought was
yeah.
amazing that something
You
he
saw
can't
that.
share with
Hmm.
me, he can just show me, or his guides can show me, and then I can help.
What a gift. I love it. I'm just amazed, really. I think this is going to change both of your lives. It really will. I know that I say that to every student. I'm like, Reiki is life changing, but I don't think people really understand it for about a year or two, and then they go, oh, now I get it. Life is completely different and so much better, really, because we have insight into so many things that it is considered a gift. It's a gift, nothing short of a miracle.
Exactly. So good. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Okay. I remember during one of our Reiki days, you had talked about putting like sometimes an invisible cloak over you to sort of keep your light hidden away.
Yes.
And Easton, every time we leave the house, it doesn't matter where we're going, there's a hoodie on with a hood up. And I'm wondering
Mhm.
if subconsciously
He's
he's just
cloaking.
trying to block his light.
Yep. I would agree with that because I know this to be true because my oldest son used to do that. He bought one of those hoodies that have like the face thing. I don't know if you've seen
Oh
those,
yeah.
but it's got the mesh over the lips and you can zip it right over your head. And everywhere we went, he would put that up. And I'll never forget the first day of school for, I think it was grade 4. And we, he was so nervous that day and he just didn't want to be seen. And he literally pulled that zipper right up over his face and he put a cloak over himself. And I believe that he's definitely doing that, hands down, for sure. He wants to be invisible because he knows that there's probably energies out there that feel icky and he doesn't want to be seen again by them.
Yeah.
So help him to understand how to do the cloak himself, right? Just say the invisible cloak. So he doesn't even have to pull his hood up. He can put the cloak on. And what we're talking about, and maybe I should explain this to everybody else because
Sorry.
it is no secret to anybody. This is an amazing thing to do. And I do it for myself every day. There's really heavy energy out there. There are earthbound spirits. There's negativity out there that's really not great. And I don't want to attach to that. I'm an empath. I have a big bright light over my head because of the work that I do. And I don't want that to be seen everywhere by everything. So I will actually ask my guides to surround me with like a really dark cloak, almost like one you would see in like, the ancient times. And I zip it all the way up so that I ask to be invisible to all and any dark energies, entities, or egos. And then I feel nothing when I go out. I feel like I can go to an airport, which is really heavy, and not be seen by anything that's lower vibing. It's
Yeah,
pretty
that's amazing.
awesome.
Hmm.
So teach
It is.
him to do that. And you should, I tell all my students that too, that the more open you are, the more you will be seen. And so sometimes we just have to shield ourselves against any lower vibrational energies coming at you. And that cloak is huge. It's really important, as well as the white, pink, purple bubble of light, which I did
Mhm.
discuss in the episode called The Importance of Spiritual Protection. And it can be done on anybody. You can do it for yourself, for your family, for your children, for your loved ones across the world. It's actually amazing. It does work.
We do that one all the time. All the
Mhm.
time.
And it helps, right?
Yeah. And I feel too like this has helped us, even when we are out in the world, it's helped us view people differently. So if we're out and we see someone who might be having a bad day, it's
Mhm.
not so much, oh, they're grumpy or why are they like, it's more like, oh, dude, like look at their vibrations low. Let's send them some love. Let's send them some light. Like it's really helping us to have compassion for other
Yeah.
people, which is, I think, really important to teach him as well and myself.
This is what the world needs, right? Is more love and compassion and understanding, right?
Mhm.
Understanding that people are struggling. And if we have the ability to share that light, that's what we're meant to do.
Yeah, so good.
I think going forward for you and for him, you have so many incredible tools in your tool belt that are really going to help you and him. And I know I've done a little bit of a reading for you where I've kind of shown you what spirit told me is coming for your life, but I don't think you can see it yet, and that is perfectly fine. We can't see for ourselves. You just have to trust that things are going in the right direction because they are.
Oh, 100%. Like even when I had talked to you through the messages, listening back to those recordings of like our first session and our session with Kate, like
Hmm.
the group reading was only 3 months ago. And I listened to that and I was like, who is that poor woman? Like I just like I've already feel like I've come so far in just these 3 months. I'm so excited to see like what's another 3 months and what's another 3 months. It's like
Yes. Keep
it's
that
been an amazing
momentum.
journey with you.
Well, I'm grateful to be a part of your journey. I knew that I liked you from the second that I talked to you. You just had that
Ditto.
energy that I felt comfortable with. And I knew that there was going to be more. I just didn't know exactly how in that moment. And then as we worked together a few times, I was like, oh my God, this is who she is. And this is where we're headed. And thank goodness, because it did really get you your baby back. And that's the number one thing that we can both be so happy with and thank Spirit for. What a gift, right?
Exactly. Well, and he's been lately really stressed out about death because I had an uncle that died in a car accident,
Oh,
and then I had an aunt who died, and then my grandma was in the hospital and like basically on death's door. So then he was like, "Mom, what's gonna happen to me if you die? Like, will I live with death?" Like he was really like starting to
oh,
spiral. I was like, dude, Rena told me I'm meeting the love of my life next summer. We know I'm here at least until next summer. So
that's
we don't have to worry about it. There's nothing to worry about.
okay, we're fine. Everything's
Yeah,
fine. Poor little guy.
I know, but
That's tough, but I mean, that's the thing. Like when we're so intuitive, we are extra sensitive, way extra sensitive to things. Like it's hard, but you will lead the way for him in so many ways. And I'm so excited for you guys, for both of you, and to be a part of the journey to get to sit back and not only just watch it, but be a part of it. That as your, Reiki master, that's something that I'm really proud of to be in it with you and him and excited for you and hopeful and all the good stuff.
thanks. Me too. Me too. Good things are coming.
Oh, yes. And I saw that, I knew it, and I'm glad you're believing it. So, and that's when it will happen.
Exactly. This was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm so glad that you came on here today because I really wanted to share your story so that we can help all the parents out there that are really confused as to why their children are maybe going through something that seems a little bit heavier than normal.
Hmm.
And maybe we could just, open their eyes a little bit to maybe there is something that's bothering them on a spiritual level, and hopefully they will reach out and get some help themselves.
Exactly. Well, and I think, this is all part of Easton's journey too. I really do think he is going to be a healer and help others. And if just this is just the start of me sharing his story to help other kids.
Yes, and make it normal. I love
Hmm.
it. I love
Yeah.
it. I want to thank you all so much for joining us today on the Divine Messages podcast. And Karina, thank you again for being so open and honest about your child. And I know it's really going to help a lot of people.
Well, thank you for inviting me on here today. I loved it.
If you would like to book a reading with me, I can be reached at www.divinemessages.ca or on Instagram at Divine Messages 333 or at the Divine Messages podcast. Please bear in mind that the perspectives and opinions represented in this podcast are based solely on the Divine Messages interpretations. We can in no way be held responsible for the actions of our followers.